Program discussing the important crossroad of religion in life, produced by Austin Metropolitan Ministries. Austin Faith Dialogue highlights the interaction of the religious community with the social and cultural issues throughout our area. Now, today's edition of Austin Faith Dialogue.
Hello, and welcome once again to another edition of Austin Faith Dialogue. I'm John McCarthy, the Catholic Bishop of the Diocese of Austin, and I'm here today with two good friends, Irma Chapa-Bauer, board chair of a wonderful interfaith organization called Lifeline, and Teresa Ware, the executive director of the same organization. Welcome, Irma. Welcome, Teresa. Teresa, let me start with you. You've had a lot of experience in this general field. When I say Lifeline to people, those who are familiar with it have a very positive reaction. Tell us a little bit about what you do and what the organization is all about.
Well, Lifeline is a social service agency that responds to the needs of pregnant women. And we have been in operation for 17 and a half years. And we have grown throughout that time. We started as an all-volunteer agency, and now we have professionals working with our clients. And especially since we last spoke about 8 years ago, we have made a lot of changes. We have upgraded, and in response to the needs, and the first need that we felt we had, one of our best workers was a bilingual caseworker. And so we knew then that we needed Spanish-speaking workers. So now we have grown to have the whole week covered by Spanish-speaking workers.
When you say pregnant women, are you specifically concerned about young women who are pregnant who are not married?
No. 55% of our clients are married, are single, and about 35, 37 are married, and then the others are divorced and separated.
Well, why would a married woman come to a Lifeline? What are the services that you offer there that they're seeking?
Well, we have our services are the comprehensive case management, and there could be poverty in the family, there could be concern that they were not getting medical care. Very often the pregnancy is just the tip of the iceberg. Very often there's an unstable family there, and so there's a lot of needs that needs to be addressed in many of our families.
Irma, I see your title is board chair, and
That's correct.
Sounds very impressive, but I'll be willing to bet that one of the main jobs you have with this type of operation is raising money. Am I correct?
That's correct.
How do you go about that?
Well, there's different ways that we try and raise money. The board of directors, that's their primary responsibility. We have fundraisers. Garage sales are a big fundraiser for us, and it's a good way for people to get involved. They donate their items and to help out. We have a Christmas evergreen sale that we just started 2 years ago. This will be our third year to do that, which is growing. Another way that we raise money is by bringing people in and just asking for donations. Right now we have one of our board members working on trying to get people to draft bank accounts and to make Lifeline part of a charity that they'll give to on a monthly basis, just small donations, and we're real excited about that.
Well, I'm sitting here talking to two very talented and competent women who are hardworking in a very, very important ministry or service to the community. But let me step back from it for a little. Instead of talking about, I want to talk about more about the details, but it's the specific services and the fundraising aspects of it. Tell me a little about, Lifeline didn't exist 25 years ago.
No.
And my guess is that there are Lifelines or comparable organizations all over the United States today.
That's correct.
What has changed, Teresa, that American society in all of our cities and in rural areas would require an organization like Lifeline, would require women who are talented and have plenty of other things to do, to give yourself as generously as you do to this cause, to this effort, to this program?
Well, what has changed is that the society has changed. The problems we see in our society today, we see with our clients, are homelessness, both complete on the streets and marginal. By marginal, I mean shacking up at on somebody's sofa for a few nights, and then when you've worn out your welcome there, you go somewhere else. It's hard enough to be homeless let alone be homeless and pregnant. And then, of course, we have a much greater problem than 20 years ago with alcoholism and drug addiction, and that leads to very unstable family relationships. We have clients and babies who are infected with the HIV virus. And so for the reasons why all the problems were getting much more difficult and complex, that's why we made a decision 5 years ago to go completely to professional caseworkers and have the volunteers do all the administrative work, because we wanted to put our money where it helped the clients the most, and that's what we did 5 years ago.
Do you have anything to add to that, Irma? You have not been at this as long as Teresa Ware. In fact, tell me, how did you get started in this?
It's really kind of a faith testimony. Back during the presidential elections, that was 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Seems like 100.
Yeah. There was quite a bit of letters in the editor, to the editor in the paper concerning, those that were on the pro-choice side and those are pro-life. And I remember reading several letters about that people who were pro-life did not get involved in helping pregnant women. And we had been associated with Lifeline. It was one of the charities we contributed to, but we had never really been involved helping out. And I remember looking at those letters and thinking, and I prayed, I asked, Lord, if there's some way that I can get involved, that I can help, I'd really like to. And I just asked God, and it was just a simple prayer. I wasn't really even looking. And I asked, if there's any way I can get involved, please show me. Oh, about 2 weeks later, Eileen Beck called. She's one of our board directors, and asked if I would be interested in serving on the board. Well, I was just amazed. I mean, it's like, I told her I needed to pray about it, but I knew then that probably the answer was yes. And sure enough, I've been involved, and I really believe that Lifeline will be a lifetime ministry for me.
That's wonderful. As a board member, Teresa, I know you, in your position, you'd have direct contact with the people coming to you for help, but would you as a board member get an opportunity to meet with and work with these young women and help them through? And I know that they're not all kids either. There's some of them more mature, but do you have any direct contact?
No. Usually on the board level, we're really just interested in raising the money, making sure that it's operating, meeting the mission statement, and I really haven't had any contact. And I do go by the office sometimes, and I'll see the women there, but I don't have any contact with the clients. I kind of prefer this aspect of it.
Sure, and it's something that's without your work, it wouldn't go. Teresa, put a face on it for us. Describe a person who discovers Lifeline, knows that they need that assistance, and what happens.
Well,
describe that person to us too.
Well, that's a very difficult thing to do,
well, I know it's
because, as I've just said about the difference in marital status. We have about 43% of our clients are Hispanic. This was last year's figures, and only 30-something% are Caucasian, 21% Black, and a few Asians. So they're all of different cultures. And
just pick any one of them. I want to see how a frightened young woman goes from being terrified about the problem she's facing and knowing that there are other options that our religious tradition are certainly abhorrent, and somehow she gets caught up in the world of Lifeline and helped.
Just recently, we had a woman that came in. She had 2 or 3 other children. She was married, and she was pregnant again. She was very angry that she was pregnant because they were really trying not to have any more children because she had suffered from depression. And so when she came to us, she was still very depressed, very angry, and almost sure that she was going to choose abortion. But there was one thing that was stopping her, was that she had had 2 or 3 previous abortions, and she didn't think she could go along with that. So her caseworker, worked on that aspect of the consequences of any decisions you might make to your family, to your other children. And she also zeroed in on the depression. You are not taking care of yourself if you are not taking care of your depression, and urged her to seek help. The outcome of this is that this woman decided to bring her baby to term, and she is enrolled in our therapeutic counseling, which we have also added in these last 2 years. and she is addressing the problem of
Was
her
money a
depression.
factor? Did she have to come to you because she didn't have the funds to get help in another direction?
No, well, you know, there was the addition, and another child would affect their financial position, but that wasn't the main thing. The main thing was, I cannot do this. I cannot do this alone.
No, when I mention money, I'm wondering, in other words, that you make your services available to anybody that
Yes,
needs them. In other
absolutely
words,
free.
was she choosing you on the basis of the fact that she didn't have the resources, financial resources,
Oh,
to get immediate help?
Probably,
Okay.
probably. And that brings me to a point where I think Lifeline differs from other social service agencies, that we are a professional agency, but we're also a ministry. And that means that the person that comes to us is going to be treated with dignity and respect. And they catch on that our caseworkers are doing this because out of love. And then this means that the client is then going to work harder on her problems because she knows that the person that she's working with really cares about her.
Well, Irma, come back to you. She's talking about professional caseworkers, and this is a private, voluntary effort. Your task, I'm not going to ask for a financial report right now, but it sounds like a really formidable budget. Your task must be a very heavy one in terms of generating this money, and if you get by this month, you've got the next year, you've got the year after that. How much do you reach out around the community to get other people aware of what Lifeline is doing and get them involved to help financially?
One of the problems that we're dealing as a board of directors is trouble getting the funding. And there's a perception among some of the community that Lifeline is a controversial organization, that because somehow we treat pregnant women that it's somewhat controversial. And our goal has been to try and get the message of Lifeline out, that Lifeline is there to help pregnant women. We're not a political action committee. All we want to do is to give a woman the choice not to have an abortion, and to do it, to have this child in a healthy manner, to have some goal-setting guidelines. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to do, is to get people that even if you are a pro-choice, that Lifeline is a good ministry, is a good organization to help out.
Who do you bring that message to? Other churches, organizations, individuals? Sort of expand on that a little.
Well, other churches, we talk to, we've been invited to other churches to speak, and we've had some churches. I know St. Elizabeth's Church has agreed to tithe a portion of their collection to Lifeline, and we've had churches like St. David's Outreach give crib grants. They set aside money, and we use that money to give crib grants to our clients.
Crib grants?
Crib grants, so that our clients can have a crib for their baby. And many other churches give to us on a monthly basis. 52% of our donations come from churches and individuals, so that's a big portion of it, and that's what we try and get our money from.
Do you ever make any efforts for larger grants from corporations or from foundations?
Yes, and Teresa could probably explain that a little bit better. That's kind of her area. She takes care of the grants. Why don't you elaborate on that?
We have been successful in getting some, but as in this area that, you know, you have one success and about 99 failures, we are starting to target the business community, because I think that in Austin, the business community is very orientated to helping those less fortunate. And but we have got to get across that we have got to stop being on the defensive that we are perceived as controversial.
Well, I can understand that perception being out there, though, because the tragedy of the whole abortion issue is that it's divided our country so terribly in two different directions, and it's divided the churches, regretfully enough. What about an effort on, it would seem to me that when a woman comes to you that she's got, you mentioned comprehensive services. You can't possibly provide all those yourself. Do you have a working relationship with a whole raft of agencies around the city and the county, or is Lifeline bigger than I think?
Well, we do. We have established a very good rapport with other service agencies. And one of the things that our new program director, who is a licensed social worker and a licensed marriage and family therapist, has been doing over the past 4 years is working with the Austin Perinatal Coalition, serving on that committee, and that's part of the Austin Project. And these are mainly service agencies who are helping pregnant women, but they're mainly people who are vying for the same, for slices of the financial pie, of the same pie. They do have an added motive for doing this. They want to get the best services out to the people that need it, to make the access of services more easy. Mm-hmm. I think in doing this, we have established Lifeline even greater in the community as a reliable professional organization. But we do have, and being part of this organization means that we can call on any member of this coalition to help us with a client. And the access to those people on that coalition is easier than it would have been without the coalition. Another caseworker, Mary Alice Ziegler, has been working with the Coalition for the Homeless, and that helps us to get first-rate and up-to-date information about what is available for the homeless. And no one person can do it alone, no one agency can do it alone. We all have to work together. And I think that's the working together is what everybody is trying to do so that we don't duplicate services and that the clients have better access to the services.
Well, that really is wonderful. I'm glad to hear there's that kind of cooperation. The problems are so large that any kind of duplication would be a tragic waste.
That's correct.
Do you sit down together as a group of agencies once a month or once periodically and talk about who's doing what?
They do. And one of the first things that they produced was what's called a universal consent form. So when a client comes to Lifeline, she's asked to sign this. So this means that she gives permission for us to share information about her situation with these other agencies. Now, she has the choice to remove some of those agencies from her consent if she wants to. But this means that she is going to have better services by doing this.
One quick question. About how many women did you assist in the last 12 months, just to guess?
1994 figures, we had over 415 new clients, but we have a caseload of about 140 clients that we are helping on an ongoing process.
That's a lot of human beings whose lives are better because of the work that the two of you.
And we also had 305 babies born to our mothers in our program last year.
We're going to take a very short break with our program as we study a wonderful ministry in the city of Austin called Lifeline. So stay with us, and Austin Faith Dialogue will be right back.
Serving Austin means serving you. That has always been the primary goal of Austin Metropolitan Ministries. We are religion in action through the work of these organizations. Each plays a key role in making the capital city a better place to live, but we can't do it alone. Do you have some spare time, talents, or any resources that you can share? If you do, please call AMM at 472-7627, because serving Austin means serving you.
Welcome back to Austin Faith Dialogue, where I have the honor and pleasure of visiting with Teresa Ware and Irma Chapa Bauer, two wonderful women who are making possible a program that assists pregnant women with problem pregnancies and dealing with hundreds and hundreds of them in this situation. And it's an honor for me to be able to interview you, but I need to wrestle with I asked an earlier question about why now. What about adoption? What's when a woman comes to you, what are her options as far as placing her child or adoption or keeping it? And what is the general thrust of your organization in terms of what you want them to do with their children?
Well, the decision lies with the mother, of course. I would prefer that a lot more would choose adoption. the trouble is we have two sort of categories of people. One, the younger ones, and unfortunately their thinking processes are not mature enough to think objectively about their problems. It's always internal to them. And what it really boils down to is that they're not mature enough to know that they're not mature enough to be a parent. Mm-hmm. And then you get the older ones. Now, why don't they choose adoption? I think we're living in a society that is obsessed with self-gratification. And usually it goes like, this is my child, and if I can't raise my child, then nobody else is going to, because they can't do as good a job of it as I can. And so if I can't raise my child, I'm not going to let anybody else do it, and I'm going to have an abortion.
Yeah, that's a tragic aspect of life in the United States at the present time. We have, across the country, thousands, tens of thousands of couples who are unable to have children and would love to take in 1, 2, 3 or more children for adoption, and yet they're simply, for the most part, not available. Is that correct?
That is true. See, the person who places for adoption, she loves and protects her child enough so that she knows that placing that baby with a two-parent family is a better thing for her child, and it is a truly selfless love. And unfortunately, people with truly selfless love are not an available commodity in our community today. And if I knew how to change these people's minds, then I would write a book about it, and I'd become famous, and I wouldn't be asking you for money.
Well, you haven't asked yet, but I know you will before the day is over, and I'll be happy to help. The Diocese of Austin is solidly committed to this,
Yes, and we do have financial help from the diocese, for which we're very grateful.
But many other churches and other organizations are as well. How do you see the future, Irma? You must be talking to a lot of people about the whole effort that you're making right now. How does it look to you? The problem is certainly here and going to possibly, tragically enough, even loom larger on our horizon. Right. What's your response to tomorrow?
I think that Lifeline has made tremendous progress in getting its mission statement out. Shelley and Teresa have been great about getting the word out. The board we have a great board of directors that are committed to getting the message out and raising the money. I think that we're making progress to getting the community to accept us. My thing has always been that pro-choice or pro-life, that if you have a woman who doesn't want to have an abortion, that really wants to have this baby, and really when you look at polls, like 80% of Americans believe that abortion is wrong, but they just believe that women should have the right to choose. And if 80% of people believe that abortion is wrong, then there's a lot of women out there faced with pregnancies that want to have this child and would just be devastated to have an abortion. And if she doesn't have another alternative, Lifeline gives another alternative.
Choice, you need to be choice all the way.
Right,
give that,
exactly.
That's true.
And that's why I believe that Lifeline is so important, because we give women a choice. And good choices, because not only do we help them through their pregnancy, but we give them goals that, we help them get jobs and goal-setting, parenting skills, so that they can have this baby and be happy with their decision to have a baby.
Well, we're well into the program, and we've talked women, women, women. There's another factor in this whole issue: males. I don't say men, because an awful lot of the males that we have in our society are less than men in terms of a strong sense of responsibility. What do you do in terms of the fathers of these children? What do you endeavor to do? I realize you'd be very limited.
Yes. Very often it's hard to deal with the fathers of the babies, because the woman is very angry with the father of the baby, because she feels abandoned by him. And so the abandonment has taken...
Feels abandoned or is abandoned.
And both, yes. Yeah. And the abandonment has taken place before she comes to us. So getting him physically in there is difficult. But the ones who are willing to support the mother, and they come in, with them, then we draw them into, the whole process. And one good way in which we can help the fathers of the babies is that if there is a relationship, and it's tenuous, and it could be a marriage relationship that is tenuous, or it could be a common law marriage that is tenuous, then we work on that relationship too. And especially in the Spanish culture, our bilingual caseworkers work a lot with helping them make a real marriage out of what was just a common law relationship.
Let me move us back to the larger issue again. Time magazine back in February had a cover story on the efforts in this country to rapidly spreading efforts to solidify marriage, that we're faced with probably the ultimate social problem in this society of ours is the near collapse of the American family.
That's correct.
If you were a baby born in the 90s, the chances are almost 6 out of 10 that you're not sleeping under the same roof as your natural father. 6 out of 10. And it's for the whole average, all infants, it's 4 out of 10. Drug addiction, alcoholism, juvenile crime, premarital sex, that whole litany that we hear all about is frequently tied in with the collapse of the family. I would think that if the kind of work that you can do could also reach out to people who are, to churches especially, to begin to develop programs that will prepare young people adequately for marriage. And then when they get in a little trouble, have programs that can assist them. In your own personal experience and in talking to these women, do you have any response to that it's the need of the responsibility? I heard one man quote, what God has joined together, let the church keep together. I think that's a great expression, and that all of our parishes and churches and synagogues ought to be thinking about that. How do you see the family situation in the country from your perspective?
Well, I couldn't have phrased it better than you have just done, but I really think that the only way we're going to stop this...
There's a good Catholic response.
The only way we can stop this is just to start before it happens. And I think that the programs we are now seeing in the churches, True Love Waits and mother, daughter, father, son programs, and people going into the churches and talking about chastity before marriage, I think that there's another side of the coin here. I think that we are not dynamic enough about how we teach as a church what married love is all about. If we were more dynamic about married love, then the prohibition of sex before marriage would seem to have much more sense. But you have got to... One of the things I think one of the ways Lifeline is helping in this area is in our therapeutic counseling, because in that area, the reasons for behavior are addressed, and these are often because they are learned behaviors in childhood.
Teresa, I can see what you're doing right now. You're setting us up for another program on Austin Faith Dialogue.
Oh, good.
I'm going to have to cut in there because we're going to have to be leaving right now. And I want to again thank Irma Chapa-Bauer and Teresa Ware from Lifeline of Austin. God bless all of you.
For more information, call Austin Metropolitan Ministries at 472-7627.